let's talk about greed. Now, I'm sure you wonder why somebody you know or somebody in authority that you actually know is greedy than you can ever imagine. Why are some people greedy? And what does greed actually do to somebody, and why do people actually become greedy? Let's look at the phenomena of greed. Where does it actually stem from? Where does it actually sourced from? And why do people tend to become greedy, right? So there are two kinds of people in the world. Fundamentally speaking, from a very psychological or an existential perspective, two kinds of people in the world. Now, either the first kind, either you're a conscious, the second kind, or you're unconscious. Well, we know the ratio of unconscious people in the world is much higher in the world, right? It's much higher as opposed to the conscious. And that's the reason why there is such a conscious movement in the world, especially in this century. Because being conscious is actually the fundamental way to change the world, and to really change the world is to bring in more consciousness in people. So the people with conscious intelligence, they gravitate more towards creativity. They care for the nature, they care for the environment, right? And that's the trait of a conscious person. They contribute immensely in the well-being of others, right? They become spiritual, and on the other side, the unconscious people is gravitating towards power. And the power can be a political power, can be a worldly power, or money power, or even religious power in some sense. And I'm not saying all of these is bad, all of these things are bad, but the way, the attitude, the manner of it is what makes somebody bad, right? The relationship that they actually have. So the unconscious person's intelligence is corrupted with self-interest, cunningness, and greed. Now, so the fundamental driving force for such people in the dominance is dominance, and to feel a sense of importance in the society that they live in. So why do people behave like this? Because they haven't discovered their inner power yet. The power which I'm talking about is a sort of power that lets you believe that you already own the world, not in a way that you actually possess it. Is not in a transactional sense, but in a much more connected sense. So now you understand where the greed is actually coming from. It's a very conscious problem, because when you actually haven't realized your own power, you tend to gravitate towards something which is power which is outside of you. So you kind of fill yourself with more and more of that power, because you have this bottomless glass, that you have this void inside of you, and you want to fill it up with as many things as possible in the external world. And let me tell you, these are the kind of people who are willing to go to any extent to get what they want, to achieve that sense of power. They're willing to kill, sacrifice. They're willing to create massive destruction, devastation all around, just to fulfill their self-interested need, which is greed, right? And I'm sure that we all have our greed in some degree or another, right? We do have our greed, and I think greed in just a very basic proportion, in a very small ratio, is sort of importance, because it puts you in the competence hierarchy. You become more competent because now you want to, you're greedy about doing things. Well, and that sort of a greed is greed in a very positive sense, right? So I'm not, and that's not a negative greed as such, but a negative greed is a person who's willing to create destruction all around just to fulfill his own self-interest, just to fulfill his own void, is the sort of greed that unacceptable. It's really unacceptable, and I think we should be wary about that. And this is a very fundamental conscious problem, right? Because the moment you become conscious, the more and more you become conscious, you will realize that greed is not the way. Greed is not the path that you need to be taking, right? Because you have this feeling that you already own the world. You are a rightful owner of this world, and you have this feeling of connectedness. You feel connected to everything around you. You're no longer just an isolated island, but you're part of the whole. You're part of the whole ocean. You're part of the whole vast land that is all around you, right? You are part of this planet, you're part of this cosmos, and you're part of this entirety, the infinity that we are actually living in.